What it do, YouTube? It's your boy, Moose here, back for another video. You know I got a spicy one. So shout out to my Red Pill Army, my kings and queens out there, alright? Alright, so bet. What we getting into today? We're going to talk about how America is a homage to ancient Egypt, okay? So, what do I mean by that? There's lots of symbolism in this country, but not only in this country, around the world. But we're going to focus on this country, where it harkens back to ancient Egypt. Okay, and this is due to occult reasons. Okay, we're going to get into that later in this video. But for right now, I just want you guys to watch because I just got a few pieces of information I'm going to drop, and I'm going to have a few other videos linked in this video. Okay, so like I said, America is Egypt. To elaborate on that, Egypt is associated with the pyramids, right? All you have to do is look at the back of the dollar bill, and you will see a giant pyramid. And most people, they notice it, but they don't think too much about it. Now, what people need to understand is that there are more pyramids located in all of America than in the whole world, okay? There are literally more pyramids in North America, the continent of North America, than in all of Africa combined, okay? So people need to understand that the ancient Egyptians, they weren't regulated to just Egypt, okay? They expanded their empire all over the world, okay? It's a global empire. Now, like I said, America is Egypt. And there are pyramids, like I mentioned, that have been found in North America. But then also, people need to think about why this has been hidden from us, okay? I mean, they were able to find an ancient tomb at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, okay? An ancient Egyptian tomb at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, the ground floor. And they ain't never going to tell you nothing about that in the history books, and the news ain't going to cover it. Oh, hell no, the news ain't going to cover that shit. You know what I mean? Bias as hell, fear-mongering. They don't want people to know that black people created pyramids. You look at the goddamn Sphinx, that's the face of a black woman. Okay? The nose fell off how many centuries ago? And then the British Museum and the British Empire has been covering up. Okay? So we gotta understand the context of this shit. Now, why is that relevant today? How America is Egypt, okay? I mean, like I mentioned, you look at the back of the dollar bill, there's a giant pyramid on there, okay? And we have patterns like that harken back to ancient Rome, ancient Israel, ancient Babylon, ancient Egypt, okay? These patterns have been reoccurring throughout history, okay? So we got to understand where this comes from and what kind of power lies in the symbolism, because there's power in symbolism. All right, now, the Great Pyramid, which to the ancient Egyptians, back in the day, back when they were around, this was known as God to them, okay? We have to understand the context of this shit. The ancient pyramid had the power of God to them, okay? And they also referred to God back in those times as Horus or as Ra. And they basically worshipped the sun and the top of the pyramid, which was like a golden capstone, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Okay, they worshipped this. All right. And we also have to look at the structures and structures in modern day as well, because something that's reoccurring as well is a phallus obelisk, okay? But we also know it as the Washington Monument, okay? It's an obelisk, but they don't want to refer to it as that. Oh, it's the Washington Monument. The Washington Monument. It's a goddamn obelisk, man. All this Egyptian symbology, man. I'm telling you. All right. So keeping it pushing. Like I said, Egypt had the 5-point star, which was prominent in their hieroglyphics. Okay, in art. Now, something that we also have to think about as well is that these people have been misdirecting us and deceiving us, okay, through these history books. All right? If you know anything about the modern American education, you'll know that McGraw-Hill is a huge influence in that. They produce a majority of the textbooks throughout America, throughout public schools, I'll say. Um, for I don't have the exact time frame for how long they're doing. I know that they're not publishing the books anymore, but it was McGraw Hill up until probably about 2014, 2015. I'm gonna have to get quotes on that, but anyway, regardless, they were the ones who was indoctrinating people in this country through this American education system. But funny enough, McGraw Hill was also owned by Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who is dead now, but he had a huge investment in McGraw Hill. And we also found out later that he was a Mossad spy. So, Mossad, Israel, all had a hand in educating the American public and children. Okay? So, yeah, think about that shit next time you sending your kid to school or anytime you looking at the history books, because the new publisher just used the same indoctrination that McGraw-Hill used, and they're just continuing the cycle. They haven't changed shit in them history books, okay? And last thing before I go, before I link these other videos too, they would have you believe, okay, the history books and America and the deceit of the American people will have you believe that all the Africans that they brought for slavery were all brought on boats. Every single black person, African American person that you see here today, the majority of the people here were brought here by boats. Are you fucking kidding me? That shit don't make no goddamn sense. There ain't no way in hell you gonna freaking transport all that many people on boats. Which means that there had to have been some here before the British colony got here, or before So that's just something we got to think about. That the ancient cultures, especially from Africa, were seafaring people. Like I mentioned, we're global civilization. Okay, they was able to create boats and go all around the world and circumnavigate the world, and then they created these structures all around the world. Okay, they left their footprints. Okay, the footprints of the ancient cultures. Got to understand that. It's very important. So, like I said, I got a couple other videos linked in this. I'm done talking. Y'all need to see some other. Y'all need to be educated by some of these other people out here who's really putting in work and creating what is it? Curriculums, I should say, and trying to educate the people and letting us know what really the history of this world is. Okay? Because the truth hurts, y'all. But we need to find out. I know everyone needs to. We need to find out what happened in the past. That's the only way we can really move forward in the future. Okay? But the truth, goddamn, hurts. I'm gonna catch y'all.
Okay? Now we have to go here because in order to understand the teachings of our ancestors, you must understand their thought process. And their thought process was one with the universe. Now, why is this important? Western psychology, okay, or the Western world, being European thought processes, teaches linear time, being past, present, or future. This linear thought of time, okay, teaches illusion, and it teaches that which has a beginning has an end. The universe is cycled. It's infinite. You can't find the starting or an ending point inside of a circle. And so time was affiliated, okay, with the universe. And everything that goes around comes back around. And so we're getting ready to go into this. Now, the reason that the ancestors taught time in cycles is because they taught in 5 different stages of conscious evolution, which we're getting ready to go into. And so, without further ado, let's jump straight in it. But everything is cycle, okay? From the time, it's always going to be 1 o'clock every 24 hours, okay? You're always going to go around the sun 360 days in a year, okay? You're always going to go around the galaxy 1 time every 25,920 years. Everything is cycle, okay? Today is not the first time that you've experienced this day. Today is actually the same as yesterday, okay? You have to understand that. You have to understand that. Today is not the first time you were here. You were here before. See? There's no past, present, or future. There's only now. And this is oneness. The ancestors taught oneness. They didn't teach no damn past, present, and future. And this is what's wrong with people. And this is why we age in fast. And so when you even look at the lifespans of people in ancient times, they lived longer. You know why? Because they weren't thinking about their life coming to an end in the future. They were constantly thinking about now. And so their thought process was causing their biological cells via their bodies to age slower, because they wasn't thinking, damn, in 50 years, I'm going to be 50. And then I probably got 40 more years left to live before I die. Okay? And they wasn't thinking and speaking into existence their demise. They were just living in the now. Straight up. And so let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. Now, the Egyptians, our ancestors, taught what you call the 5 sun cycles. Okay? Now, these sun cycles, see, everything has you have an exo and you have an esoteric understanding. Okay? Now, our ancestors taught 5 stages of consciousness, but they made these stages synonymous with the rising and setting of the sun, because you have what is called the circadian rhythm, okay? Physiologically. Now, the circadian rhythm is the rhythm in which your body's biological clock reacts to the position of the sun. So let me give you an example, right? You have cells in your body whose job is to digest food. Whose job is to break down food from about, let's say, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then you have those cells go to sleep. It's like a shift at work. You got your morning shift, your day shift, then you got your graveyard shift. So the morning shift of cells in your body, their job is to break down food. Okay. Then from 4 o'clock to 11 p.m., you have another group of cells who become active, and their job, okay, is to begin to, after the food's been broken down, their job is to begin to separate and seek out the nutrients and that which is healthy in regards to what you just consumed. And then from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., okay, you have another group of cells who now basically come to work, and their job is to distribute the nutrients that they just distinguish your body would need. And so your body reacts biologically to the sun, and it does this every day in a cycle. And so your soul also reacts, okay, in a cycle manner in regards to your evolution of consciousness as your brain develops, okay? And so I have a PAU coming I'm going to do on my YouTube channel in regards to the evolution of consciousness and how it's synonymous with the brain. So I'm going to go into that further in that. But here I just want to show you the distinguishment of what the ancestors made. And so you have the 5 sun cycles, right? Now, these sun cycles, I'm going to be dealing with the times a day, but I'm also going to be showing you the states of consciousness that the ancestors made them synonymous with. Now, the first sun cycle is what you call the Kepra beetle. Now, this is called the awaken. Now, the time of day that this is synonymous with is morning/dawn. And the state of consciousness that this is synonymous with is called birth of consciousness or reborn. And so the first stage of your consciousness is when you first get woke. And so you can think of this stage is when you read that first book that jot your memory, or you watch that first Young Pharaoh video that wake you up. Okay, that's when you in Kepra. And so why did the ancestors use the Kepra beetle? This is a dung beetle, and every morning after the animals would use the bathroom, okay, the dung beetle will come and roll up their fecal matter, and they were rolling into balls, and these balls of dung would become greater and greater and greater in size, and then this beetle would lay his larva or his babies into the giant ball of manure, and the babies would hatch and have a direct food source upon their birth. But the rolling of the dung and it becoming greater and greater in size was symbolic to the rising of the sun. And so the dung beetle was symbolic to sunrise, which is the first stage of a day out of 5 stages. And the sun rising is also symbolic to you coming into consciousness. Okay? And so this is why these symbols told stories. They're called ideograms. Ideas depicted, okay? I mean, an ideogram is a symbol void of a word, phrase, or grammatical text that depicts an idea or thought. And so the ancestors did not use A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They used images that depicted teachings. So this one symbol, okay, if you were in Egypt and you seen this symbol, everything that I just told you would automatically come to mind. And so all ancient civilizations used ideograms, okay? They didn't use words. And so you can't turn an ideogram into a letter. So it's impossible for you to decipher this. But continuing on, let's go to stage 2. So stage 1 of the sun cycle is Kepra, okay? You coming into awakening, aka the sunrise. Let's go to stage 2. Stage 2, right? AKA the second of the second out of the fifth the second out of the 5 sun cycles is Ra. Now Ra means the stubborn. Now don't forget, let's go back to Kepra. Kepra is when you a baby. You just came out of the womb, okay? You was just born. Now as time goes on, okay, you come into Ra. Now Ra is considered the stubborn, all right? So you just went from the awakening. Now you at your teenage stage. You at the stubborn. Now this time of day is considered noon or zenith. And in regards, which is the zenith, which is when the sun is at its highest peak, okay? And they consider that the most stubborn. And everybody know when you a teenager, you at your most stubborn, okay? Because your understanding of the world is true, but it's not yet mature. And so in regards to the state of consciousness, the ancestors considered this to be your adolescent stage of consciousness, aka your day stage. So let's jump back one. You come out the womb as a baby and you first born into consciousness. And as you're rising into your consciousness, you go from a child to a teenager. So you go from Kepra to Ra. Okay? Y'all get where I'm going with this? They wasn't playing no games with this knowledge. These ancestors of ours was highly advanced in every capacity of their thoughts. And so now you at Ra, okay? And this is synonymous with noon. Now let's keep it moving. Now we go to stage 3, which is Un, O-O-N. Un was considered the wise. Now the time of day that this was associated with was the afternoon. So you had the morning, sunrise, zenith, Ra, okay, noon, and then after you pass 12 o'clock and you start heading towards 3 o'clock, you got the afternoon. So now we come in to the stage where it's after your stage of being a teenager. You coming into an adulthood. So the stage of consciousness this was associated with was the mature stage of consciousness being an adult. And if you look at the laws in America, the laws in America are set up the same way. You have a minor, okay? We got a baby, a child, a minor, okay? A teenager, an adult, and an elder. It's 5 stages of adulthood in America, just like it was 5 stages of consciousness in Egypt. Where do you think they got it from? And so now we at stage 3 out of the 5 cycles of the sun. So once again, the time of day this is associated with is the afternoon, and this stage of consciousness is the mature stage. So this is when you becoming an adult. So let's do a rewind so y'all can understand. You came out of the womb, you was a baby, you was born. That's the physical symbolism. The spiritual symbolism is you just now becoming awakened in your mind. The solar symbolism is the sunrise. Boom, stage 2. Physical symbolism. You went from a baby to a teenager. Okay? You stubborn in your knowledge. You think you know it all. That's the spiritual symbolism. The solar symbolism is it's 12 o'clock. Now, let's go to stage 3. You went from a teenager to a young adult. You probably about 18 to 21 years old at this point. So now you went from being stubborn to you're maturing in your knowledge now. That's the spiritual symbolism. The solar symbolism, it's afternoon. So now let's go to stage 4. Okay? Stage 4 out of the 5 stages of the sun cycle is Aten. Okay? Aten. Aten. Now, Aten is considered the wiser. Remember, stage 3 is considered the wise. So when you're an adult, you start to become wise. But stage 4, Aten, okay, is the state of consciousness, which is considered when you at your fullest stage of consciousness. And this was considered the stage of consciousness for an elder. So it's called the wiser. And the day of time that this is associated with is evening/twilight. Okay? And so the stage of Aten is the highest level of consciousness that you can be at. This is your fullest stage of consciousness. Hence, Akhenaten, okay, is the deity is the god that they tried to say taught sun worship, which he didn't worship the sun. He understood the science of it. And then who came and threw Akhenaten out? Amen. Now it's funny because the 5th stage is Amen. Amen means the hidden. Amen today became amen. This is why when you pray, you say amen because it means hidden. Amen, in regards to its time of day, is night. In this stage of consciousness, it's symbolic to the fall of consciousness. And physically, this means death. And so let's go back now. Let's go through the whole cycle. Cycle 1, Kepra. Physically, it means you were born. Spiritually, it means you just came into conscious awakening. So on a solar scale, it means sunrise. Boom. Stage 2, Ra, which is the stubborn. Physically, you at your teenage age. Spiritually, it means you stubborn in your consciousness. And on a solar scale, okay, it means noon. Stage 3, Un, O-O-N. This is when they call you wise. Physically, you're an adult. Spiritually, okay, you've matured in your consciousness. On a solar scale, it's the afternoon. Stage 4, Aten, A-T-E-N. It's called the wiser, which means you are wiser than you just were because you're becoming an elder. Physically, this means this is synonymous with becoming an elder. Spiritually, this is your highest state of consciousness that you will reach as a human. On a solar scale, this is symbolic to the evening. And then the last stage of the sun cycle is Amen, which means the hidden. Physically, this is when you die. This is when you leave this vessel. Spiritually, this is the fall of your consciousness. And on a solar scale, this is nighttime. And so this is why the ancestors taught time in the linear module, because this is an inevitable process for all beings. Whether you a dog, cat, insect, human, tree, you will be born, you will be stubborn, you will be wise, you will mature, and you will die, and then you will reincarnate and do that all over again. So the ancestors taught time in a cycled form. They didn't teach no past, present, future, and all of that crap. That is linear thought, is European thought. And so today we're not even in our right minds. And this is why I keep stressing the fact today, people keep talking about they conscious. If you conscious, why do you believe in your heart that it's 2018? We understand that we can say it's 2018 because we have to function in the matrix. Even I say it sometimes. But in my heart, my mind, I know it's not no 2018. That's a made-up date according to the Christian calendar, which is trying to subconsciously program me to believe that Jesus died 2018 years ago. Ain't no ancestors teaching, wasn't no ancestors teaching no goddamn it's 2018. They was teaching time in regards to its effect on your consciousness due to the rising and the falling of the sun. Period. Period. Now let me sip this water and we're going to keep it moving. All right, let's keep it moving. The 5 cycles of the sun, part 6. Now here's where I get freaky, because y'all know how I do. Right? Over here is a depiction of a sound wave. Okay? Now, mind you, the sound wave is split in 4 sections, just like a Coptic cross. A Coptic cross was the original cross, which was balanced, and it was considered the solar cross, and it was used to divide the 4 sections of the zodiac. Now, as you can see, you have minimum and you have maximum. Now, watch this, right? The rising and the falling of the sun, as well as the awakening and the death process of your consciousness, is in direct synchronicity with the vibration of sound. Watch this. Over here, right? In this section of this sound wave, there is no sound. If you look at the zodiac chart over here, you're in Amen, which means hidden. Now, sound actually begins to remanifest itself in this top quadrant of this sound wave. Now, if you look over here in the zodiac, this is Kepra. Kepra is an Aquarius. Today, we're coming into the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is what? Awakening. Kepra is what? Awakening. Morning time is sunrise. Awakening. Their ancestors was far beyond what you can even believe they were, right? And so as you continue to travel the path of the sound wave, when you look over here in this third quadrant, okay, it's not rising or it's not falling. It's stagnant. Now, if you compare that with the location of the zodiac sign, that's Ra. Ra is what? When the sun is at its zenith. And consciously, that means what? Stubborn. Okay? And physically, that means what? Your teenage stage. And so on the zodiac scale, let me show you something. Religion starts back here, 6,000 years. Okay? Religion starts at Taurus. For the last 6,000 years, we've been kept in darkness through religion. We've been in Amen. Now, today, we're coming into the age of Aquarius, which is Kepra. Now, when we get over here to Sagittarius, we'll be in Ra, which is stubborn. Now, if you continue to follow the path of the sound wave, it begins to pick up over here, coming into the 4th quadrant, which is Un, which is Libra. Now, remember, Un is when you begin to become wise. Now, if you look down here on the sound wave, it's at its maximum capacity, aka is becoming wiser. It's at its highest state of vibration down here in this 4th quadrant. If you match the 4th quadrant up on the zodiac scale, it's Leo. Leo is the most powerful sign in the zodiac. And Leo is in Aten. Remember, Aten is your highest level of consciousness. Now, why is this important? The sign for Leo is what? The lion. The Sphinx, okay, is the body of lion with the head of a black woman. Now, when you do the science on the Sphinx, every July 21st to 23rd, the Sphinx lines up exactly 180 degrees with the Sirius A star. The Sirius A star is in the Leo constellation. The Sphinx was built in Egypt over 34,000 years ago during the age of Leo. And so the Egyptians chose to make the body of the Sphinx a lion to let you know that they built it during this time period. Okay? And then after that, it comes back into Amen. And so the exact diagram of a sound wave is in complete synchronicity with the frequencies of the universe, okay, according to the zodiac scale. Remember, I just did a video on the witching hour, and I was breaking down how Virgo is when the frequencies of the universe first start to pick up, and that's at 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. If you look on the sound wave, this is Virgo. It's picking up right here, taking you into Aten. Here's Virgo, taking you into Leo, Aten. It's called transdimensional physics, family.
Astronomy, they could look at that star map built into the architecture, and they could work out from that when the star map and therefore the dam was made. And it's the same principle that we find at work in the monuments of Giza. Only in the case of the monuments of Giza, it's not just a matter of dating the monument. It also helps us to get to grips with what they really mean. 2 constellations are represented on the ground at Giza.
All right, but Graham, before we get there, let me understand a little bit better the science of the wobble.
Yes.
In other words, how we are able to measure without 26,000 years of experience in one wobble cycle, what standard of measurement do we then use and apply toward being able to date these structures?
With very fine and precise observation, you can note that the wobble is underway over a relatively short number of years. Within a human lifetime of 72 years.
Throughout this series, we've learned quite a bit about the discoveries made in ancient Egypt and how those discoveries have shaped our perception of not just Egyptian history, but world history overall. But let's be honest, everything about this subject that we have learned thus far has indeed been a manipulated construct of elite institutions of deceit. The French, the British, and the Spanish are all guilty of fraud, as well the Germans, the Dutch, the Mongols, the Turks, the Arabs, the Muslims, the Jesuits, the Freemasons, the Native Americans, the Jews, the Moors, and plenty more are all guilty in the fraudulent manipulation of historical truth. It is becoming ever more clear that there is a massive cover-up shielding the history of pre-Columbian America from further investigation. Hold up, this nigga look like William Dafoe's granddaddy. He got that strong Cro-Magnon chin. Many are familiar with the discoveries made in Egyptian mummies, where it was found they undoubtedly had traces of tobacco and cocaine. This flipped the world of Egyptology upside down because, of course, America was undiscovered and any pre-Columbian contact is denied by all historians.
Even if traders, just as today, might have made all sorts of exotic claims for the source of their products, there is nevertheless clear evidence of ancient contacts as far east as Syria and Iraq. They also extended north into Cyprus, south into Sudan and Somalia, and west into Libya. But America? To the majority of archaeologists, the idea is hardly worth talking about.
The idea that the Egyptians should have traveled to America is overall absurd. I don't know of anyone who is professionally employed as an Egyptologist or anthropologist or archaeologist who seriously believes in any of these possibilities, and I also don't know anyone who spends time doing research in these areas, because they're not perceived to be areas that have any real meaning for the subjects.
I don't know what it is, but I hate this guy's face. I just want to punch him right in that calcified muff pouch. Look at him. He's got a face for punching.
Why was the mere contemplation of voyages before Columbus or the Viking crossings to America thought to be some sort of curse?
Why?
It was in 1910 that a group of early anthropologists began to theorize that the stepped pyramids in Mexico might not have been the invention of American Indians. Could the technology have come from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, from Egypt, where there were also stepped pyramids? After spotting other transatlantic similarities, these anthropologists began to argue that all civilization was invented in Egypt, and later handed down to what they regarded as more primitive societies. The implication that Old World culture was superior was thought acceptable at that time. But the arrival of modern dating techniques showed that the similarities were far more likely to be independent developments. For example, The Egyptians turned out to have abandoned pyramids with steps in favor of smooth ones 2,000 years before the first stepped pyramids occur in the Americas. What's more, the suggestion that American Indians couldn't build their own civilizations became highly unpopular.
Every possibility on earth but the truth. These charlatans will only push false narratives and intentionally steer you in the wrong direction.
Despite a brief revival in the 1970s, when anthropologist Thor Heyerdahl crossed the Atlantic on a primitive reed boat, research into ancient contacts with America was frowned on, even if now unconnected with theories of cultural superiority.
I have no reason to doubt that there were others, but what they were and how much influence they had on American society is very much open to question. But that transoceanic voyages are possible, or were possible, seems to me overwhelmingly likely.
A likelihood Bernal believes is reinforced by some Roman jars found in 1975 in a place called the Bay of Jars in Brazil. It's been suggested a Roman galley could be buried under the sea, but the interpretation of such finds is heavily disputed.
But they would fit the possibility that there was the odd ship that, by mistake, ended up on the other side of the Atlantic. What they're not going to fit is the idea of sustained two-way contact, because there is a huge amount of historical evidence from the Roman world, and there is nothing whatever that suggests that such contact existed.
They can't have been planted because the bay was known as the Bay of Jars since the 18th century, so that Roman jars have been turning up. And this links up with indirect Roman documentary evidence of contact.
The Bay of Jars is only one of several oddities claimed as evidence of transatlantic contacts. Also in Brazil is an inscription said to be in an ancient Mediterranean language.
The one that absolutely proves trans-Pacific voyaging is the sweet potato. There are also discoveries of peanuts more than 2,000 years ago in western China. There is a temple in southern India that has sculptures of goddesses holding what look like ears of maize or corn.
And if American maize might have got as far as India, why couldn't tobacco or coca have reached Egypt? They could have come across the Pacific to China or Asia and then overland to Africa. The Egyptians need not have traveled to America at all, or even known where the plants originated, but could have got them indirectly through a network of world trade. But any ancient trade route that includes America is unacceptable in archaeology.
I don't think it's at all likely that there was an ancient trade network with America. The essential problem with any such idea is that there are no artifacts to back it up that have been found either in Europe or in America. And I know that people produce examples of possible things, but they're really very implausible.
An Oxford archaeologist says it's absurd.
The evidence for ancient trade with America is limited, and most of it is disputed. But it can't be completely ruled out as an explanation for the apparent impossibility of Balabanova's results. Results that at first seemed so absurd, many thought they would be explained away by a simple story of a botch-up in a lab. Results that, still without firm explanation, continue to crop up in unexpected places. For in Manchester, the mummies under the care of Rosalie David, the Egyptologist once so sure Balabanova had made a mistake, produced some odd results of their own.
We've received results back from the tests on our mummy tissue samples, and 2 of the tissue samples and the 1 hair sample both have evidence of nicotine in them. And I'm really very surprised at this.
The
results of the tests on the Manchester mummies have made me very happy. After all these years of being accused of producing false results, contaminated results, and things like that. So I was delighted to hear that nicotine was found in these mummies, and very, very happy to have this enormous confirmation of my work.